I always like to begin by emphasizing the principle of feeling myself unconditionally loved by the divine. That will be, for me, an ideal, healthy starting point. Before speaking about us loving God or us loving everyone, emphasize this idea that we are already being loved and fully accepted unconditionally. And I've had very deep moments of that in prayer, in practice, in relationships. And that's for me very, very foundational. And many times that's missing in spiritual traditions when we overly emphasize loving God as if only when you love God, you will be loved after that. But actually, you are already being fully loved. And I learned that lesson mostly, I must say, from Christian mysticism, though it's present in my tradition. But I was only able to fully discover that after going through Christian mystics and how much they nicely emphasize that. Then I was able to go to the Gita and to the Bhagavad Gita and say, oh, this is also in my scriptures and tradition. Thank you, mystical Christianity. So for me, that's a very healthy, beautiful, subjective, experiential starting point for love. I'm being fully accepted, fully embraced, fully loved. I already belong. I don't need to belong. I don't need to do something to belong. I already belong.
So when you say we are loved, does that mean that God, feels an emotion towards all the billions of beings that God, in God's creation? Or does it sort of relate more to God's nurturing influence, where all beings are evolving because of God's presence and so on, and the way God has structured the universe, or what?
Yeah, I wouldn't personally necessarily separate one from the other, that God feels something in particular lovingly for each one of us, or that God's love is His nourishing in our ever-evolving journey. I would say because of one, the other happens, so to say, or the two happen simultaneously, as I mentioned in my book, and as my tradition or Christian tradition, and I will say every mystical tradition say God is love. So if you are love, you cannot not love. Basically, right? It's not that God is loving as an optional quality that He exhibits only at times, but He is love. So if you are love, you cannot go against your essential nature. You cannot not love. You don't have a choice in that one. God is limited, if you want to put it that way, in that sense. God cannot not love. And that's our great fortune. So in that sense, I will say the fact that God is love, and of course, these are words and we can think about it as much as we can, but at the end of the day, as one of my teachers will say, you need to enter into samadhi, into deep meditation, and realize all these things for yourself. But yeah, in our tradition, we'll feel God as being love itself and expressing and experiencing a particular loving attitude for each one of us individually, uniquely. And in that context, accompanying each soul, nourishing their path, even when we may not be aware of the divine presence, even when we may officially deny the divine presence. I like to give the example of the GPS. Even when we turn on the right direction, the GPS say go left and we went right. GPS will never retaliate, right? And say, you stupid, what did you do? I'm tired of you. It's always recalculating. I'm presenting the best possible scenario, considering your latest mistake, so to say. So that's how I like to express God's accompanying and nourishing us in our even ups and downs and shortcomings, recalculating to be nourishing and present as much as God can, without fully canceling our free will at the same time.
That's good.